A warm welcome to today's video explaining the criticisms of the indivisibility argument for philosophy A-level. Now, the spec expects you to know two criticisms. We're going to look at a further criticism by Gilbert Ryle as well. Now, the first way that we can attack the indivisibility argument is by attacking the first premise, the notion that the mind is indivisible. And so we can reject this and we can claim instead that the mind is divisible. And we can use contemporary neuroscience to do this. We can suggest that with conditions such as the split brain condition, for example, we can separate parts of mental life. And that includes visual processing. So what I see with my left eye is processed in the opposite side, the right side of my brain, and that is true for my right eye being processed by the left side of the brain. Now, what this shows is that different parts of the brain are responsible for different parts of mental life and mental processes. Brain injury, for example, may affect consciousness, mood. That is shown by a famous example of a man in a train accident. Miraculously, he survived this brain injury, but his personality was altered immeasurably from that. And so in some sense, parts of our mind are divisible. Now, the second way that we can criticise the indivisibility argument is by attacking premise 2, the notion that my body is divisible. So physical states, for example, temperature, the notion of being too hot, too cold, is not the type of thing which is divisible. So although Descartes can say, he can argue, he does put in his argument that the physical world is divisible, that's actually a premise which is taken for granted. It's not quite as simple as Descartes would like you to believe. But I actually don't think this is a very good criticism. Descartes can respond, or a Descartes sympathiser might respond, that this is actually a misunderstanding. And temperature, the feeling of being too hot, too cold, is actually a mental process, because what Descartes is really saying is the body is a three-dimensional thing. Obviously, it exists in three planes, and so because of this, I can literally divide the body. I don't want to. Everything is connected, and I'd like to keep all my fingers and limbs and such, but literally, I could divide the body if I wanted to. And this quality is completely different from the mind. The mind, there is no way that I can divide the mind up. It's this completely unextended, non-physical thing. So the reason why I've brought in a third criticism, the category errors criticism, is because I don't think either of these are as strong as the category errors criticism. Now, this is a strong criticism, but it's not an easy one. And so I've got my notes in front of me. I'm going to do my best to explain a very complex idea. Now, the first thing we need to understand is that a category error is an error where we put things of one category and we say that they belong to another. Basically, we place something in the wrong category. And Gilbert Ryle gives us many examples, but my favourite example is of Oxford University. Suppose that my friend who goes to Oxford University shows me around the place. And he shows me the buildings, he shows me the people, the students, the lecturers, the cleaners. He shows me the libraries as well. And after the tour, I say, thank you for this tour, but where is Oxford University itself? I appreciate that I've seen the buildings, the people, the libraries, but I don't know where Oxford University is. That's a category error. And we would know that that's wrong even without knowing the notion of a category error. But what specifically there is wrong? Well, I put the notion of Oxford University in the wrong category. I think that it's just going to be another physical thing, another building somewhere that I haven't been shown. It's not. Oxford University is an abstraction of all of the physical things and lots of non-physical things as well. The same is true for Chelsea Football Club or the Bank of England. Of course, these things are comprised of their physical things, the stadiums, the people, the notes that make up the Bank of England, for example. But there are other things as well. And these ideas, Chelsea Football Club, the Bank of England, Oxford University, are ultimately all abstractions taken from all the physical things and some non-physical things. And that's an example of a category error that Ryle gives. Now, for Descartes, the mind is a thing. And the reason Descartes gets to this position is because he looks at our ability to reason, he looks at our use of language, and he does not think that a purely mechanistic account of human beings can account for this. So just by talking about the body, just by talking about biology, we can't account purely for our ability to reason, our ability to do mathematics, our ability to use language. Because animals, we can give a complete account of animals as these mechanistic biological beings, but they don't have this extra thing that we have. And so Descartes looks at these mental processes, and this is important, he looks at these mental processes, and what he then infers is that there must be another thing that's responsible for these mental processes. Because a machine can't do this. And so it can't be the body, can't be a physical thing, it must be this ghostly other thing, a mind. But Ryle argues that the mind is not a thing. So this is the fork in the road. For Descartes, we see these mental processes, and it must be caused then by this ghostly thing. Ryle disagrees. What Ryle argues is the mind is not a thing. All that the mind is it's part of what the body does. The body does, sorry. And so it's a behaviour, not a thing. The mistake is, and Descartes admits this isn't like pointing out some hidden thing. What Descartes does is he takes the physical processes and he doesn't think that they're processes, he thinks that they can be accounted for by another thing. But this is wrong. So the mind is not a thing like the body, like a building. It's not another substance. And this can be demonstrated as well when we think about questions like, where is the mind? What do you mean, where is the mind? That's an absurd question. The mind is nowhere. Because the mind is not a thing to be found somewhere. All that the mind is physical, mental processes. So the mind is not an extra ghostly thing that somewhere it should be somewhere. It's not somewhere. It's not. The mistake that Descartes makes is he separates mind and body into being two separate things when they're not. All that the mind is the mental processes that the body is ultimately responsible for. So the mind is just behaviour. The mind is what the body does. It's not just some ghostly other thing. And so Descartes makes a category error. He puts mind in a category of thing. It's something. It's a thing. It's not. It's not a thing. It's a behaviour. And that's the category error. That, in my opinion, is the strongest criticism of the indivisibility argument. And note that you can also extend that to criticising substance dualism as a whole. I hope this video has been helpful for you. Please share it with your classmates and give it a like. Thank you for watching.